Barcelona's incredible comeback reminds Parisians that soccer is a horrible, horrible sport, and the rest of the world that it's actually pretty great. Christian Pulisic cranks the hype meter to 11. The Arsenal exodus rumor-mongering is also in full gear. The price tag for Tottenham's new home jumps by a few £100 million. And Red Bull proves that purchasing the world's best footballing talents isn't nearly as important as purchasing the world's best accountants and attorneys. It's Thursday, March 9th, 2017. I'm Taylor Rockwell, and you are listening to The Goalmouth, a podcast collaboration between Dirty Tackle, Howler Magazine, and the Total Soccer Show. Up first on today's sampler of bite-sized soccer news, they say nothing in this world is certain, save for death and taxes. After Wednesday, I believe we're all legally obligated to add Barcelona coming back from seemingly insurmountable odds to that list. The Catalan club was able to erase a 4-0 loss in the first leg of their Champions League knockout round clash with PSG by hitting 6 past the French side to advance by a 6-5 aggregate scoreline. Things look good for Barca, who were ahead 3-0 until Edson Cavani scored what appeared to be an all-important away goal for PSG. And then came the final few minutes. Neymar hit an inch-perfect free kick to make it 4-1 in the 88th, and then Luis Suarez drew a penalty which Neymar converted in the 91st. Barcelona goalkeeper Marc-Andre ter Stegen came forward in the closing seconds and eventually managed to draw a foul. From the ensuing restart, a chipped ball from Neymar found an on-rushing Sergi Roberto, who knocked home the all-important 6th goal from close range. What more can I say about this game that Reddit headlines haven't already made clear? Here's the select sampling. Number 1, Barcelona become the first team in Champions League history to overturn a 4-0 first-leg deficit in the knockout stages. That would be the first time in 185 matches. Not too bad. Number 2, after the 85th minute, PSG completed just 4 passes, 3 of which came from kickoff. That's right, the 3 restarts after the goals were 3 of the 4 passes PSG completed in the final 5 minutes and change. And finally, I think Gerard Piqué said it best when he exclaimed, "Hospitals need to hire more nurses in the next 9 months because tonight a lot of lovemaking will be happening." That's all he had to say on that one, but I would just add, unless of course you're a PSG fan, then it's just hours and hours of stunned silence punctuated by, I assume, crying. Meanwhile, in Wednesday's other Champions League clash, Christian Pulisic defeated Benfica 4-0. At least that's the story we more or less stuck to when we reviewed the match on the Total Soccer Show. In actuality, Pulisic only managed a goal and an assist for Dortmund, but that's still pretty impressive given that 1, he's a teenager, and 2, he's American. We don't tend to score too many goals in the Champions League. Pulisic was so impressive that he even made one reporter open his laptop and attempt to figure out just who exactly Pulisic was. As tweeted by journalist Donnie O'Sullivan, immediately after the youngster scored, a reporter seated in the press box opened a new tab in Safari and Googled the name Christian Pulisic. That said, the reporter in question also looked up the offside rule on Wikipedia and accessed what appeared to be a chat room about mountains, so maybe he isn't the greatest barometer with which to gauge Europe's familiarity with Pulisic. Oh, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang also scored a hat-trick, but I think we can all agree that it was mostly Pulisic's contribution that really sealed the deal. So, things are pretty happy for Barcelona and Dortmund, sad for Benfica, dreadful for PSG, and somehow saddest of all for Arsenal. As Ryan told you yesterday, the London side exited the Champions League on Tuesday at the hands of Bayern Munich and an aggregate scoreline of 10-2. Somehow that wasn't the worst news of the week for Arsenal supporters, though. According to ESPN, Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain are all believed to be heading for an Emirates exit this summer, and Jack Wilshere, Lucas Perez, and David Ospina could all follow suit. The story indicates that, quote, Oxlade-Chamberlain is one of a number of established players at Arsenal, including Sanchez and Ozil, who have already decided on their futures regardless of whether Wenger stays or goes. The uncertainty over Wenger's future has exacerbated concerns over Sanchez and Ozil's commitment to the club, with both players so far rejecting attempts to secure them to new long-term contracts, end quote. Things have gotten so bad that sources also claim that the Gunners are looking to stabilize things by bringing back the likes of Marouane Chamakh, Francis Jeffers, and Andre Santos. Just kidding, Arsenal fans. See, it could always be worse. And in fact, Arsenal aren't the only London club who are struggling to nail down a long-term future. Reports out of the UK indicate that construction costs for Tottenham's new stadium have spiraled, with Brexit, it seems, at least partly to blame. The initial budget for the project was estimated to be about £400 million, but has now increased to a slightly higher figure of £800 million. That's double for those of you keeping track at home. According to Executive Director Donna Cullen, quote, it's worth remembering that the original cost quoted for the stadium was some 7 years ago. Brexit has added a straight 20% on costs for foreign goods due to the exchange rate, overtime working, and increased construction costs similarly, end quote. The new stadium is expected to open in August 2018, will have a capacity of 72,000, and will feature a retracting pitch to make it suitable for American football. That's right, in case you forgot or, like me, never knew, Tottenham inked a 10-year stadium deal with the NFL back in 2015 that will see a minimum of 2 games per year played at the new facility. It's a deal that seems tailor-made for the Dallas Cowboys and their mascot, who I assume wears Spurs, to play the Denver Broncos, whose mascot I assume does not particularly like Spurs given what they're used for. Regardless, hooray for cross-promotion. Speaking of insanely wealthy organizations with way too much money, it's time for a Red Bull update. A few weeks ago, I told you that there was a chance that either RB Leipzig or Red Bull Salzburg would be prevented from competing in next season's Champions League. As a refresher, the issue was essentially that the two clubs have the same owner, Red Bull chairman Dietrich Mateschitz. Roughly speaking, UEFA don't allow two clubs with the same principal investor or owner to compete in the same competition. More on that in just a second. If the rule had been enforced, strangely enough, RB Salzburg, who are likely to win the Austrian Bundesliga, would have been guaranteed a spot, given that UEFA's bylaws stipulate that the club that finishes higher in its respective league gets top spot. But thanks to lawyers and accountants, this won't be a problem. Because what the financial fair play laws actually stipulate is that one investor or owner cannot have decisive influence over two separate clubs competing in the same competition. In this case, decisive influence is defined as contributing 30% or more to the total income of a club. Mateschitz contributes more than 30% for RB Leipzig, but not for RB Salzburg. No, it seems that the Austrian club made enough money from TV revenue, ticket sales, and, most importantly, player transfers to ensure that Mateschitz's direct financial contributions were lower than that 30% threshold. A quick check of the recent transfer news shows that the club sold midfielder Naby Keita for 12.75 million euros, center back Dayo Upamecano for 8.5 million euros, right back Bernardo for 5.1 million euros, and right back Benno Schmitz for 750,000 euros. Of course, it's also worth noting that all of those players were sold to, you guessed it, RB Leipzig. The German club spent 32 million euros on Salzburg players this past year. That might maybe look like they were just kind of buying players to send money to the club. Who knows? It is a decent chunk of money, but it doesn't matter since the funds didn't come directly from Mateschitz. The clubs aren't technically violating UEFA law. It's another heartwarming victory for the scrappy billionaires of the world who rarely, if ever, get their way. No, wait, sorry, I wrote that wrong. Always. They always get their way. My mistake. And with that, we've come to the end of yet another Goalmouth episode. You can explore all these stories in more depth by subscribing to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. I've been Taylor Rockwell. George Qureshi will be with you tomorrow. He's filling in for Ryan Bailey, who filled in for George Qureshi. I think that's how it worked. But until then, I'll leave you with today's Goalmouth top tip. If it looks like Barcelona and plays like Barcelona, then PSG are almost certainly in trouble.